Ladies and gentlemen, and everyone in between and outside the box and the lines and wherever you fall on that whole spectrum thing. I don't know enough about it, so I can't say much more than that. After that awkward little bit of an intro, hey, it's your good buddy Spider, welcoming you back to another Monday night. We're back, we're still on track. That's 2 weeks in a row, we're still on track. Is it 3 weeks in a row, or is it 2 weeks in a row? I don't know. I know we missed a bunch of stuff, and we've been slowly getting back into the groove. But here we are, once more. And I've got an interesting one for you. It just kind of came to me earlier in the day today. Because I usually think them up the day of, and you might think, oh, that's pretty lazy. Why don't you think about them earlier and, get some research? Well, because I just like to keep it fun and offbeat a little bit, right? I don't want to put too much of... I don't want to bore you, right? I don't want you to be like, oh, well, he's obviously meant this to be a lecture. I don't want to sit here for a lecture. His name isn't even Ted. That's a poor joke. I'm full of poor jokes. Anyway, so I was just thinking about this earlier. Let's get back on track here. I just said we're back on track, right? And I was like... let's think about some fairy tale stuff, right? Let's talk about fairy tales, because there's a bunch of them, and the Disney ones in real life are based off of stories that don't quite end the same way, most cases. Things are usually a little bit different. But then I thought I'd hone in on one specific area. Pardon me. One specific, very specific area. So what we're going to do... what's the topic? The topic is the big bad wolf. Let's talk about this. My throat's a little dry, so you're going to have to... I've got something to drink here, but I'm still a little dry, so you're just going to have to, I guess, put up with me for a few minutes. But, the big bad wolf... This is a character that's been... it's not just limited to one story. We have a lot of stories. Several stories. About a wolf. A tricky wolf. And I have to wonder, why is it specifically a wolf? It could have easily been like, we got Goldilocks and the Three Bears and stuff, right? And we've got other things. In African stories, they have the spider. I think they have... I don't know if they have a tiger or a lion. I don't remember what all they have antagonized, but they have the spider, Anansi, who's like a troublemaker. They have coyotes here in North America from the native tribes that are in various stories. Coyote. But specifically, like in most European stories, you get the wolf, the big bad wolf. And the big bad wolf got that name, I believe, either from Little Red Riding Hood or the Three Little Pigs. I don't remember which one came first. And we're kind of fascinated by it. It's always kind of the same thing. This wolf comes in, and he's tricky, and he's hungry, and he's smart, and he comes up with these plans to eat up whoever he's trying to fool, right? Like in Little Red Riding Hood, he swallowed the grandma, and he wanted to swallow Little Red Riding Hood, but he fails at both. Well, I mean, he kind of succeeds with the grandma first, but then they get her out, and then he runs off. Or he doesn't run off, depending on the story. Some stories are a little bit more violent than others, right? And then Three Little Pigs, of course, he's trying to gobble up the pigs. And in some versions of the story, he succeeds, and in some versions of the story, he doesn't. And they escape, and they all end up at the brick house and say, nee, 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 But it's always a big bad wolf. And he's been in cartoons. We've had movies like Neverending Story, right? Neverending Story. The antagonist was the Nothing, which was supposed to symbolize like the loss of imagination. in a child, I believe. It had something to do with the loss of imagination, because kids wouldn't read the book, and it was like his imagination going away and him growing up and things like that, and then nothing was coming through and claiming everything. But the nothing was symbolized by a big wolf. And the wolf wasn't the nothing itself, but it served it, and it would go out and it would help it devour things until eventually it was going to be devoured last. This is kind of a heavy episode, I guess, for kids. So if you're as a parent, you might want to be like, I don't know. I'm not going to get too big on the gobbling up details, so I don't want to make anybody upset. But if you think this is a little bit too much for your little youngins, then you can have them go have a snack somewhere or something, or go to bed. I don't know. Whatever you want to do. But yeah, it's... And I did some... I thought, let's do some background. Now, we have a lot of misconceptions about wolves, but they're based on some facts. Okay. Now, most animals in nature aren't specifically malicious. They don't go out of their way to do cruel things, right? They're not like... Cruelty isn't really an animal thing. It's a people thing, which is very unfortunate. But that's kind of how things are in life, right? So wolves kind of get a bad rap in that regard. They're not going out in packs just to look for people to torment and to bite and chomp on and be like, ha ha ha, we're wolves and that's what we do. They go around trying to find meals. They have to feed themselves. They have to feed the pack. They're going to go for, like most things, they're going to go for what's going to fight back the least. We have all kinds of stories from Europe and places like that where, the European countries, I don't want to just say Europe as if it's one cohesive unit, because it's all a bunch of different things. Like the United States is a bunch of different states. It's not all just the same everywhere you go. Here's some commentary for you. But they'll go on farms and they'll go after smaller things first. They'll go after chickens and stuff and maybe like sheep and whatnot. But they're not gonna go after. They're not gonna go after something that looks like a predator. Like they don't go out after bears. You don't see a wolf pack going after like, oh yeah, we're a pack of wolves. We're gonna go pick a fight with that bear. They might get into fights with bears and things in nature, but not because they meant to. It's mostly like a territory thing. It's not because they're just going out and be like, I bet we could take that bear, let's go get him. That's not how animals think generally. But wolves have been known many times throughout history to attack people. If you're in their territory, either they're defending it, or if they're hungry enough and nothing else is presented itself and it's 4 or 5 wolves, they think they can take you. It's not out of the realm of possibility that they might think to themselves, okay, I think we could... This guy doesn't go out in the woods very often. He doesn't have any weapons on him. I think we could do this. Come on, fellas. And so they might take a shot at you. And, but because throughout history wolves have been kind of like that, aggressively territorial, they've earned a reputation. Like a lot of European medieval towns and stuff was like, don't go out at night, the wolves will get you. Or they'd have like armed groups of patrols of people with weapons and things like axes and swords, and they'd be like, go out and find those wolves and get them to stop, in an unfortunately violent way. And so we've had a complicated history with wolves. Some say that modern dogs, not all of them, of course, we've been selectively breeding dogs for a while, but certain dog breeds that are closer kind of to the wild than others are descended from wolves, and that we domesticated wolves and eventually they turned into dogs. And that could be true. I don't know if we have direct evidence of the first wolf that was tamed and then eventually we bred them into dogs. I don't know. I think dogs are still a distinct species, right? I don't think that they all came from wolves or wolf-like creatures. I think dogs used to be more wild on their own, and they were a different subsect. I'm getting into some complicated stuff, so maybe the kids are bored by now. Maybe. But, so we have this idea in our heads, kind of wolves being smart, of being troublesome, to put it mildly. What's interesting, though, is in nature, wolves often are in packs, right? It's not like you do occasionally, they will find like single wolves here and there, stray wolves or solitary wolves. Most of the time they're in packs, whereas most of the stories they're not. Three Little Pigs, it's one wolf. It's one big bad wolf. Little Red Riding Hood, one big bad wolf. And the same with a lot of the other stories, which is interesting. It's interesting because it's almost like the stories are trying to say, okay, one wolf is going to give you trouble, but you can outsmart him. You can beat one wolf. But the stories don't have stories of packs of wolves. Maybe they don't want people to think that you can defeat a pack of wolves this way, because they didn't want people to get the idea in their head that they could just go out into the woods and start fighting off wolf packs, because you really couldn't. But it's an interesting point. It's an interesting thing that I noticed. And most of the time, the wolf is, of course, a bad guy. But there's been times, too, in modern shows and cartoons where the wolf is just misunderstood. Just misunderstood. In one of the shows that my daughter used to watch, she used to watch this show called Goldie and Bear, which is, of course, about Goldilocks, who's now friends with Baby Bear from the Three Bears, right? They hang out now after like that unfortunate porridge incident. And there's other fairy tale creatures all throughout the forest, like Humpty Dumpty and a bunch of them, right? And there's the big bad wolf, and he's always trying to get things. He's always trying to steal things like snacks and play tricks on people and get rich. But he ends up being like, he wants to be friends with everybody. He pretends he doesn't, but he doesn't like being lonely. He likes to hang out with people, and he's just trying to get attention. And then she had another show that she watched called The Bravest Knight. And I don't want anybody to get, I know how people can be about certain lifestyle decisions, right? And I'm going to cover this kind of delicate because I don't want anybody to be mad, and I'm not trying to be any sort of advocate for anything one way or the other. All right? I don't do that kind of thing, and I'm not trying to say certain things are good or certain things are bad or certain things are whatever. You make up your own opinions about what you want as long as you're not hurting anybody. Okay? We got that clear? Okay, that's for the adults. That's for the grown-ups. Kids can usually be like, all right, it's fine, I get it. Adults sometimes need a reminder. But she's watched this show called The Bravest Knight. And they go to a town where people are being the town is full of like anthropomorphic pigs and sheep, like they're wearing clothes and talking and be like, oh, it's horrible, there's this wolf that comes to town and it keeps blowing down our house, we have to stop him. And so the kid that's in here, he's trying to be a knight, right? So he's like, oh, well, here's a quest, I can stop the wolf and save all these people, it'd be great. He doesn't really think about, and that's what the lesson of this episode is. It's about other people's point of views and things like that, right? But we'll get to that. And so they set a trap. And they see that the wolf is coming through, knocking on people's doors, like, hello, can I come in? And when nobody answers, because everybody's in hiding, he blows the house down, right? He does the whole huff, puff, But they trap him. They trap the wolf. And they put him in a cell. They're like, why were you destroying people's houses? And he's like, well, I didn't mean to. I was just trying to find if anybody was home. I'm lonely. And they're like, what do you mean you're lonely? No, I'm lonely. I knocked and nobody was there. I've seen people in the village before, and I've tried to approach people, but they always run away. So I thought maybe I just, huff and puff a little bit, and maybe I got a little bit too vigorous. So it was like, it was a little... And so eventually the people were like, well, okay, if you want to be friends, you're not going to eat anybody. No, I'm not going to eat anybody. I just want to be friends. Well, okay. And it ends up, that's what he wanted, just to be friends. So it's... And the reason I said that I started this out as it's kind of controversial is because the actor that plays the wolf is a person named RuPaul, okay? They don't get into any sort of topics like that. I'm going to edge around that. I don't want... Again, I'm not trying to get people upset. It's not that kind of a show here. It's not controversy. I don't find any problems with the episode. It doesn't... It's not some kind of agenda or anything as I'm watching the episode. I don't see any of that happening. I have seen other things in the world that are like that. They're like, they're trying to, be really pushy about this or about that or whatever, on either side of whatever spectrum. But it wasn't like that in this episode. So however you feel about this person, it was a fine episode. Okay? So don't be mad. It's all good. But it's another, it's a thing about listening to other people's points of views before you make judgments about them. And I know people are going to be like, oh, well, that's the... Rah, 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 rah. It's a lesson I think we can all use anyway. On both sides, I think we can take a minute and just be like, okay, I don't necessarily agree with you, but I understand where you're coming from. Right? We could use a lot more of that, I think, in society. Now, the Red Riding Hood version of the Big Bad Wolf has always seemed to be a little bit more like definitely an enemy kind of thing. We've got a lot of modern interpretations of that, where it's a battle against this monstrous, evil wolf creature. Right? We've got a lot of that kind of stuff. Comics and movies and games and stuff. Three Little Pigs, it's more like... he's hungry, he's just trying to get himself a meal, and the pigs end up being smarter than he is. That's the thing about it, too. It's the wolf's trying to take advantage of those who don't seem as tough as him to get himself a free meal. You know what I mean? But wolves are... let's get back to the real-life subject of wolves. I think we've been unfair. Kind of like sharks. Okay, sharks have been maligned in public perception for a long time. We've got movies and all kinds of other things about sharks that are dangerous and whatnot. But sharks inherently, again, are not an animal that's just looking to come out and just, oh, is that a person in the water? Better eat him. Better give him a chomp. Because I'm a shark and that's what I do. It doesn't work like that. Most of the time, even with some of the most aggressive sharks out there, generally, they operate on instinct. They see something splashing in the water, and they think, what is that? That looks like it might be something that could be tasty, or maybe it's not. I better bite it to make sure. And that's usually what happens. They'll bite to find out if it's something that might be tasty. Then, if they decide that, oh yeah, that is pretty good, then, things are a little bit more dangerous after that. But inherently, it's not meant to just be like, they're not meant to just go up and just attack you with the express purpose of, oh, I see something thrashing over there, instantly, time to eat it. It's, they test things out with their teeth. It's a strange concept maybe for us, but that's what they do. They just test them out. They're like, what does this taste like? Oh, it doesn't taste like anything. I don't want it. Oh, this tastes delicious. I want that. That's how animals operate. Generally, right? It's nothing personal. They're not looking specifically for you to cause you an issue. And it's unfortunate when that happens. I'm not going to downplay that. Like if somebody's out there swimming and there's a shark attack and things happen, that is unfortunate. Same thing with the wolves. It is unfortunate. But that's nature. You can't condemn the entire species for stuff like that. We're coming to terms with that with sharks. There's been a lot more positive shark talk over the last 5-10 years, to my knowledge. Maybe it's just the entertainment I've been watching. You still get movies and things like Megalodon and things like that, where it's like, oh, that's a big shark. But as far as conservation efforts go, you get a lot more sympathy. Things like that. And wolves, I guess, it depends. You still get places out west where you get ranchers with the big ranches of animals and things. Not like the big factories that produce milk and stuff like that. That's different. That's like big factory farming. I'm talking about people who still have acres of just grazing land and things like that. And they still have to deal with wolves and stuff of that nature. But I don't think it's as bad as it used to be. Most of the time, they try to leave the wolves alone, or even in some places they're trying to repopulate wolves. That their population has gone down because people have been too vigorous, so to speak, in defending their property. Which I think that's good. I think you need to reintroduce, because each species kind of keeps every other species in check. Every species has a purpose for the most part, except maybe for fleas. Hate fleas. Fleas and ticks can just get out of here. Fleas and ticks can all just get out of here. I don't like them. Mosquitoes too. You can get out of here. But mosquitoes are a food source for other creatures, and that's why they're here. Because other creatures devour them. They still suck, but but fleas and ticks can just get on out of here. We don't need them. I don't know I don't know too many animals that their exclusive diet is fleas and ticks. I think we could probably safely remove those from the ecosystem, and I don't think anything would collapse. Now, I say that, and then somebody will chime in with a comment or an email and be like, well, actually, scientifically, let me tell you who relies on fleas and ticks, and then I'll be kind of chagrined about it. But for right now, I'm putting my foot down on it. I'm going to be ignorant about fleas and ticks and just say get rid of them. But everything else, they got purposes. Like wolves are specifically necessary parts of the ecosystem, as far as like the deer population and things of that nature. And there's got to be enough deer to sustain the wolves, and there's got to be enough of certain other foods to sustain the deer and whatnot. And it's Lion King. It's Circle of Life, right? Everything has a place. Everything is supposed to have a place. The only thing that doesn't have a place is us. Because we stand out. We're the people. We do things differently. We take over places and we push other species out, and then we got problems. So we have to be a little bit more conscious about these sorts of things. And I don't want to get, preachy or anything on people. This is a fun show. It's an informative show. You're learning about stuff tonight. You're learning about things. We're learning about wildlife. But, excuse me, got dry in my throat again. But we should be a bit more proactive in how we impact things around us. I'm not going to go nuts with it, because I think the planet itself is in pretty good shape, and I don't think things are quite as dire as some people will say about it, but we do have a bit of a responsibility, because we have caused some problems in the several thousand years that we've been here. Longer than that. It's been hundreds of thousands of years as far as our actual genetics have been here. Speaking of ourselves, the city building, internet using, yes, we're so smart. It hasn't been quite as long, but as far as walking around and kind of stuff, we've been around a while. Some people still talk like that, believe it or not. It's true. Some people right here in Ohio still talk like that. And go to the grocery store and don't be offended. Don't be mad. Don't be mad. If if I don't have a cup of coffee in the morning, that's probably me. Like, I barely talk in the morning if I haven't had my coffee. I'm just like, I communicate in grunts and waved arms until I've woken up. That's a true story. There's evidence. So yeah, the big bad wolf. Is it really big and bad? Is the big bad wolf really a big bad wolf? Well, in some stories, maybe. But you can't blame a wolf for trying, I think, is the lesson that I would take away from it. You can't blame a wolf for trying. He's hungry. He sees, something gullible. He's going to go after it. That's the wolf. That's the big bad wolf. So what do you think? What do you think about wolves? What do you think about wildlife in general? You could drop me a comment when this video hits YouTube, which it will almost immediately after the broadcast, within like 10 minutes. It's been kind of slow lately. There's been a couple times where I thought it wasn't going to post, and it did. So, yeah, let me know what you think about wildlife, like wolves and sharks and things of that nature. My daughter's really into foxes right now. Foxes are her big bread and butter kind of thing that she's into. She loves herself foxes. She's got all kinds of them. She's got stuffed foxes and Lego foxes and robot foxes and all kinds of things. Maybe not robot foxes yet, but she'll get one. If she finds one, she'll get one. So tell me about your wildlife experiences. Tell me how you feel. I would like to know. Leave a comment on this video on YouTube when it posts, or send me an email at uncannyspiritsclub@gmail.com. I love to read the emails. I do. It's one of my favorite parts. I love to read the emails. You can send me more. You can send me a lot more emails. Now, as far as everything else goes, this is episode 49, and next week is going to be episode 50, which means we're going to be halfway through season 3. Can you believe it? Halfway through season 3. It took a while. It took longer than it would have. Had a lot of stuff happening over here. So it's going to feel like a longer season. But we'll be halfway through. 10 more episodes, and then it's on to season 4. Lots of exciting things going on. Lots of good stuff. Make sure that you are subscribed to that YouTube channel. It's Spider Does Things on YouTube. Subscribe to that, like some videos, share some videos. You can always go back and listen to these episodes on demand. You've got Season 1, Season 2, and Season 3 all available on YouTube. Okay? And every click helps. So that's all I got for you. That's the big bad wolf. It's not so bad a guy or gal, or maybe they're not a guy or a gal. Maybe they want to be something different. Whatever. Don't get mad at me about it. That's 2024. This is how things are. Okay? Don't get mad at me. I'm just telling you. And yeah. So the big bad wolf. Who's afraid of the big bad wolf? I'm not going to sing the song for you. I could, but I won't.